And basically what insurance companies do at a very high level, everybody knows, we pool money for life insurance or retirement funds and things like that. And of course we want that to grow because that's an investment for your own future. And the way we do that is we have a separate branch, asset managers, which is where we work. And what we do is basically invest this money into various things. But this is very different from most banks, as in we specifically have long-term investments, and we specifically have very, very conservative investments. Because it's my retirement funds, it's your retirement funds, it's your mom's, it's everybody. And so we're very, very conservative. And what that means is that for the most part, what we invested is real estate. And real estate, of course, we have a wide variety of things that we invest in, but part of it is houses, which is like the obvious one, but it's not actually the best investment if you really want to do it long term. So we have stuff like power plants. So this is not only corporate marketing. We have stuff like power plants and malls and things like that we keep for the long run, because it's very easy to plan. Okay, it's maybe only 1% income, but over 50 years and it's almost guaranteed. So this is great. So this is what we do generally as a company. We've been doing that for a while, since the 1800s?
164.
Yeah, 165 years, exactly. And so this is like our general business, but like in any company, there's a need for IT, as you all probably know. So this is where we come in. So we're corporate functions IT, and we're a specific branch of IT, which is corporate functions. So we don't deal with laptops or printers or hardware or anything like that. We're the branch that deals with solving business problems in very wide terms. So Carlo here, one of the other hosts, is the head of corporate functions IT, and I'm the senior architect for all things software and technical. And there's many, many ways that we can solve business problems. There's many types of business problems to solve. And although we're a relatively old company and it sounds a little bit boring from the outside, we have the luxury of being able to choose, because most of our business partners, they don't really care. They invest in real estate. They buy and sell houses and malls and stuff like that. So they don't really know about IT. So we have the luxury of being able to choose what we want within reason. So we're structured in 3 teams. We have one team, they're called for the function that they serve, so marketing and communication, but that's the team that we serve. So they don't do marketing, they help marketing do their job. We have ownership of the cloud deployment, so like the entirety of Asset Manager's cloud team is ours, so to speak. And last but not least, we have the data engineering team. So these 3 teams, relatively small teams compared to other companies, but good ones. So this is where this is basically to give you a little bit of an overview in the landscape. And so why are we all here today? And why, obviously we do use Rust. Although we do wear a suit, we are actually very well hidden nerds. So we went to Eurorust. Carlo and I are both open source developers, system level developers mostly, at least historically. So we still both code, which is sometimes a little bit surprising to our peers. They expect that I draw slides. Well, I show them code. That's just, So we have a slightly different approach, but it's also quite effective, and we both really like Rust, and we get to decide. So recently we've tried to build things with Rust in general. We do that on our own, spare time, of course. So we went to Eurorust, where we met Stefan, and I think that's the only one, or maybe some of you. So recently we started a new project. We had to do some refonting of a public website that we have. And today, since about 20 minutes, it's live. It's this one, so you can't really tell that it's Rust. But it is Rust behind the scenes, so it's a very finance-oriented view of the funds that we offer as asset managers to other investors. So we manage real estate really well, but maybe somebody else, UBS or whatever, wants to invest in that fund to get also very stable returns. So this is kind of our web shop for professional investors. And so this is all Rust on the back end. It's not WASM yet, who knows? Like right now, it's a relatively traditional front end with Svelte and front end technologies, and the API in the back end is Rust almost entirely, except for the data loading parts. There's a little bit of Python, but that's basically it. And yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the talks. I'm looking forward to them myself. And yeah, thanks again. Thanks for coming, and yeah, enjoy. Thanks.
Okay. You ready?
Yes. Hi everyone, I'm Niels, and in this talk I'm going to talk about how you can contribute to the Rust project. So my Rust project journey started 3 years ago when I was watching the RustConf talks, and Esteban from the Rust compiler team made a talk about how to contribute to the Rust compiler. I had some free time and was kind of interested, so I followed these steps, cloned the repository, found an issue to improve, an error message, and then made a pull request, and then another one, and a lot more, and now I'm here. And my goal with the talk is that maybe in 3 years, some of you will be here too, and reference my talk, because I motivated you. So a bit more about me. As I've said, I'm Niels, and I've been contributing since 2021, as I've said after the talk. And I've been on the compiler contributors team for 2 of those years. As a member of the compiler contributors team, I get to do reviews and approve PRs, and also permissions for labeling and other stuff, which I'm going to talk about afterwards. I'm not really specialized in any area of the compiler. I'm just kind of everywhere, doing whatever I want to do right now. Yeah. Another thing I do a lot is issue triaging, which I'm going to talk about afterwards. And I think my most famous work was this error message here, where you sometimes get a nice error message when you forget to add a feature on a crate. So this talk isn't just my own work. Well, it is mostly my own work, but some friends have reviewed it as well. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because most of these people also contribute to Rust, and that's where I met them. And for me, the social aspect of contributing to Rust has become a really big part of why I still contribute. And it's nice to make a PR and get it, but it's even nicer to get a PR and get it merged by a friend. So let's get started contributing. The most important thing you need to know is that you don't need to be an expert in anything to contribute to Rust. Of course, some areas do require some more domain-specific expertise, but some other areas don't require any Rust knowledge at all. It's mostly just you need to find what you want, and you need to find what to do. And what to do is what I'm going to tell you about today. The most important thing to contribute is you need to have some time and interest. While different areas require different amounts of time, everything needs some time. And if you don't have any time, you won't be able to do anything. Also, interest is of course important. If you're not interested in contributing, then why are you thinking about it? So with that out of the way, we want to contribute something. But we need to think about what should we contribute. So that's what the talk is about. The first thing we're going to focus on is things that don't involve writing code. When we're talking about contributing to an open source project and similar, we very often think about code and making pull requests and getting them merged and getting commits and so on. But really, while the code is core to the thing, it's by far not the only thing to do. And the code can only work because other people do other things as well, or the same people do other things as well. And the work around the code often also doesn't get nearly as much recognition and attention as the code itself. And we're also not great at this ourselves in the Rust project. There's this cool website, thanks.rustlang.org, that shows a list of contributors and their contribution counts, where contribution count means the amount of commits and reviewed pull requests. So, but of course, all these people are prolific contributors and are very great. This doesn't count the contributions that don't involve writing code. But still, you can be sure, if you do contributions that don't involve writing code, the people writing code will be very thankful for you. So let's talk about the first thing, triaging issues. As I've already said, that's something I do a lot myself as well. And it's a nice thing to do because it doesn't require a lot of time. You can label some issues in a few minutes. And it's also very easy to get started. You don't need to be a compiler expert or whatever. So the things that are involved in triaging issues is labeling, minimization, bisecting, and adding tests. All of these things can be done without permission. The first thing we're going to look at is labeling. Here's an example issue that we're going to label. Someone opened an issue talking about documenting the memory ordering guarantees for the thread spawn function. Sounds interesting. We don't really care about the details. We just want to label it with some things. Because the main Rust repository has over 8,000 different issues, and other repositories have many as well. So if we ever want to find an issue again, it's nice to have some labels. So what labels should we give to this issue? The first category of label is the area, which is in yellow, starting with an A. I'm going to give the areas atomic, docs, and thread, because it's about atomics and threads, and also about documentation. There are a lot of A labels. You don't need to know all of them. You can just search for some that you think might fit. The next thing is the category label. I gave it a C feature request because it's a feature request in some way. There are also other labels that might apply. That's just what I chose. It's not that important to get it precise. The last thing is the team. So you might know there are a lot of different teams in Rust, like the libs API team or the libs team for standard library, compiler team, and so on. This issue is about the libs API team because it's about the standard library, and also its public guarantees, so about its API. Then I removed the needs triage label because that's for unlabeled issues, and we've just labeled it. Now, I just click the GitHub UI and add the labels like this, but if you don't have permission, that's okay. You can use Rustbot and write a comment telling Rustbot about the labels you want to change, and it will do it for you. The next thing to do is bisection. And you can use the eNeeds bisection label to find issues that need bisection. There are sometimes also other issues that don't have the label. Just have to search a bit. Bisection is very useful because the compiler, by just being able to compile the same code in a lot of different versions, it's very easy to bisect regression into a specific version. So bisection is very often used for internal compiler errors, as we see in the example issue here, where there was some internal compiler error, so a panic in the compiler about some error message we don't care about. And then we just copy the code, paste it into a new Corga project, use the Corga bisect Rust.ch tool, and it will automatically bisect it for us by downloading CI artifacts. You don't need to build the compiler yourself. That would be very slow. Bisecting is very useful, as I've already said, because it points to the precise point where regression was introduced, which often is a small self-contained PR, which is very often already half of the fix. And in the end, after running Corga bisect Rust.ch, it will print the GitHub comment that you can just copy into a GitHub comment, paste it, and it will look like this. Additionally, you can also open the regress commit, find the pull request with the commit, and ping the author or the reviewer of the pull request. So yeah, they get informed about the regression they caused, and very often they'll just fix it themselves. The next thing to do, that's kind of similar to bisection in spirit, is minimization. eNeed MCVE label, that's put on issues that need it. It's also very often for internal compiler errors, but can also be for different issues. Sometimes people open issues with reproductions. That's great. But then the reproduction contains Tokyo and requests and futures, which are all very big and complicated crates. If you're a compiler developer and are trying to figure out what compiler panics while compiling Tokyo, that is very hard because there's just so much stuff going on. So what we want is we want the reproduction that's a lot smaller. So instead of Tokyo, it's maybe 100 lines or 50 lines. This takes some effort, but not too much. And you just need to delete some code, see what it still compiles, do that 1,000 times, and then you did it. So for the issue I just showed, with Tokyo and request, did that myself last year, and it took about 2 hours to get it down to 60 lines, which was then sufficient for someone to fix it. I have the steps from this minimization in a GitHub repository, if you're interested, though it's not very well documented. It's just random commits with nonsense commit messages. If you want to do it yourself, I can also recommend reading Felix's blog. So Felix is a compiler team member, and he wrote a blog post about some patterns you can apply for minimization a while ago. It's very long and good, but it's a bit outdated in some ways, but it's still pretty accurate. And lastly, I wrote a tool to do this automatically for you. It's called Cargo Minimize. It sometimes works, sometimes doesn't work. You need to play with it a bit, but I recommend trying it out. The last thing to do is adding tests. So sometimes a bug will just be fixed randomly. Maybe someone refactored some code and suddenly the panic doesn't trigger anymore. In these cases, that's great, the bug is fixed. But without a regression test added, which we always do when we fix something deliberately, it's not really fixed. It could reappear at any moment. So we want to commit a test. So to do this, you just look at issues labeled E needs test. You try to take the reproduction, see whether it still passes, create a test for it, commit it, make a pull request, and then the issue can be closed. Kind of involves writing code, but also not really. So that was it with issue triaging. Next up, we're going to look at triaging in existing unstable features. Rust has a lot of different unstable features. Maybe you've used some of them, maybe you have your favorite. If it's a big one like generic const expression, it doesn't really apply here. But maybe you have a small library function that you really want to see stabilized. Then this section is great. Because with the unstable features, we generally want to either stabilize them after everything has been resolved and is ready, or we want to close them because they're just not worth it. So to track the status of unstable features, we use so-called tracking issues. These are issues labeled as C tracking issue, and they're tracking the state of the feature. And if you're ever interested in seeing the state of a feature, just go to the tracking issue, and you will see a nice summary comment summarizing everything about the feature right now. In theory, that's of course not true in practice. People don't write those, so we should write those. There are currently over 700 tracking issues, and we want to summarize some of them to give people a clearer insight into what's going on there, what needs to be resolved, or if everything is resolved, to stabilize them. So if you want to write some summary comments, new issues are not really ready for writing a summary because they've just been opened. The really old issues, it's probably not worth it because they're like specialization, which is fundamentally flawed right now, so you're not going to make progress there. But yeah, I recommend going to the golden middle, so issues that are a bit older, but not too old. And then you summarize everything about the issue. You look through all the discussion on the tracking issue. If there's been an RFC, read the RFC, read link discussion on pull requests, and so on, and just aggregate all of the discussion together into a nice summary comment. Important things here are to aggregate all the questions about the issue. So or about the feature. Which kinds of things aren't really decided yet? Open questions, these should be listed. All open questions need to be resolved to make progress. So once they're nicely listed, maybe someone else or you could try to make progress on answering them. Resolved questions are also great, because no more work has to be done. They're already ready. But make sure to aggregate all of them into the summary comment. Then in the end, you can also propose some next steps. Maybe you've seen that all of the open questions have been answered, so it's just resolved questions, and the feature seems nice. You can propose to stabilize it. So here's an example of the label break value feature, which you might know, doesn't matter if you don't. The actual stabilization proposal for this is about 4 times longer than the slide, because a lot of discussion has happened about this feature. And Jun then nicely aggregated all of the discussion, all of the open and all of the resolved questions. There were no more open questions, and then the feature was ready to be stabilized. If it's just about some smaller thing, you don't have to write such a huge comment, of course. It will be proportional to the amount of discussion that has happened. Just make sure to summarize everything important. Or if you think the feature should be closed, and consensus on the issue seems to have been that it should be closed, then you can write a similar comment. It should also be very detailed and mention everything, and propose to close the feature and remove it. For example, this could be because there's a different feature that solves the use case better, so it's been subsumed, it should be deleted. or maybe the use case just isn't important enough for the feature complexity. After you propose to do something, the relevant team, like the language team for language features or the Libs API team for library features, might see it and propose a final comment period, where the entire team will gather consensus and check their boxes, and after the majority has approved, it will be merged or closed. So if RFC bot shows up on your issue, you've made great progress. So now that I've mentioned some ways to contribute without writing code, I of course also want to talk about the things that do involve writing code, because there's a lot of code to be written. If you just think about, I want to write code for the Rust project somewhere, go to the official tooling, like Clippy, Rust Analyzer, Cargo, RustStop, Rust Format, and some other tools that I probably forgot about. The Rust tooling is great, and we all love it, but it of course also has bugs and missing features that need to be fixed and implemented. And the tooling also gets less attention than some of the other projects. So there's definitely a lot to do here. An example of doing something here would be to implement a new Clippy lint that can find new bugs in developers' code. Clippy is always happy to take new lints. Alternatively, you could try working on a standard library. Standard library is of course very important, and documentation is already great, but could always need more improvements. And performance of the standard library is very core and critical to the operation, because everyone uses it. And bug fixes are of course also important, because if there's a bug in the standard library, that's going to be bad. If you're interested in adding new APIs to the standard library, it's a bit more complicated, because the Libs API team is rightfully quite selective about what to add. You should probably go to the internals.rustlang.org forum first and talk about your problems. This talk is necessary about this. I just wanted to mention it. But do know that if you intend to contribute to the standard library, the review bandwidth of the Libs team is quite limited, so your PRs might sit around for a bit longer. So if you just want to do anything, I wouldn't recommend the standard library. So now let's talk about the compiler, which is what I've been doing for the most of the time. So I want to talk about it a bit more. If you're interested in contributing to the compiler, diagnostics, so improving compiler errors, are a great starting point. Rust compiler errors are known for being quite good, but we have over 2,000 issues that are labeled as A diagnostics. So over 2,000 error message improvements people have thought of, because you can always do better here. So if you want to do one of those, just go through the issue tracker, filter for those labels, and find one that you're interested in. You can of course also just do something yourself without an issue. For example, if you've seen a friend or coworker confused before by an error message, you could be the one fixing it. Another thing you can get started with are internal compiler error fixes. Not all of them are equally easy to resolve. Same with diagnostics issues, of course. But many internal compiler errors have some easy fixes available. So if you just check it out, try to reproduce it locally, and then debug through it and see what's going on, you might be able to fix it. Another place to get started are the eMentor and eEasy labels on issues. eEasy means that someone thought the issue might be easy to implement, which isn't always true in practice, but is the hope. And eMentor means that someone who knows about the compiler, like from the compiler or compiler contributors team, is willing to mentor someone on the issue, so spend some more time helping them. So if you look for eMentor issues, you will definitely have someone to ask questions to. So what exactly do you do on the compiler other than these things? I'm going to show a few of my examples, which are kind of half random, half deliberately picked. Here's my first PR, which was a diagnostics improvement, as I've already mentioned, about suggesting impl trait in some cases where generics would be wrong. Something I thought would be an easy beginner mistake, and now they get a nice compiler error. So diagnostics are also a nice thing to contribute to, because you can then, after they're merged, get the nightly compiler and later the stable compiler, and test them out yourself and see the nice compiler errors. And you can show them to your friends. Or maybe even in the future, you're working on something yourself, get the error, and you get your own compiler error. That's the best thing that can happen. Here's another one that still hasn't been merged yet, about improving a lint. So the Rust compiler has a lint about doing let on equals mutex.lock or something like that, because the underscore immediately drops the lock, and immediately dropping locks is not necessarily what you want. So it is a lint. I was reviewing a different PR that touched the lint, so I did some other improvements to the lint. This was one where I just fixed some Clippy lints on the compiler. Running Clippy on the compiler is a bit complicated, so there are still many lints around. I just fixed some of them. It was quite a big PR. I wouldn't recommend making a 300 file PR as like a new contributor, but a smaller one might work. Not every PR can succeed. Here I was hearing about Chandler working on the Carbon Google C++ replacement, and he implemented a nice hashing framework and spent quite some while optimizing it. So I thought, let's port this Carbon code to Rust and see whether it makes the Rust compiler faster. It didn't. Rust compiler uses FX hash, which is really fast for its needs. So yeah, didn't work out, but still fun. If you intend to contribute to the Rust compiler, I can recommend reading the Rusty dev guide. It contains some mostly up-to-date, some outdated documentation about the Rust compiler. And yeah, it's quite detailed in a lot of places. And if you're interested, I would certainly recommend reading the first few sections about contribution procedures. So what exactly to do, how to open a pull request, how to run tests, and so on. Because it's a bit complicated. The Rust compiler is not a normal Cargo project for complicated reasons. And yeah, you can of course also read the entire guide if you're interested, like I've done before. So now maybe you think you want to contribute some code and write something somewhere, or just also like contribute something else, but you're not sure what you want to do and you just want to look a bit around first. That's completely okay. You can look at existing PRs or issues for the issue triaging things. You can just scroll through the open PR list, look at some PRs, look at the diff, the linked issues, and see how other people try to fix the issue. And maybe you can then think that you could have fixed this yourself and get a bit more familiar with the project this way. If while looking at diffs you see some like obvious issue like a typo or something else, do leave a review comment, of course. It helps everyone. So if you're now a bit interested in doing something with the Rust project, although like the first thing applies to most open source projects, do remember that most of the people contributing to Rust, luckily not all, are volunteers. So me included. Sometimes review times may take a bit longer, or other things just take some time. I've approved some PRs after 10 minutes. I've also approved some PRs after a few weeks. Depends on what's happening. So yeah, review times can sometimes be long, especially with the standard library, as I've mentioned. And on the Rust-lang Rust main repository, we have that you should ping your reviewer after 2 weeks if they haven't responded, or ask on Zulip for help. But usually it takes less than 2 weeks. As I've said, it has taken 10 minutes before. So if at any of those steps you are not sure what to do and have some questions and need some help, check out rustlang.zulipchat.com. It's the chat platform that the Rust project is using. You can also read a bunch of discussion that's happening there if you're interested. And yeah, just go to a stream or general if you don't know another thing, and just ask your questions. And someone will certainly answer them. So yeah, with all of that mentioned, I hope I can see some of you on GitHub contributing yourself. Here are some of the most important links again. And yeah, that was it. Thanks for listening. And yeah. Do you have any questions about some of the talk? Yes?
How does the minimization tool work that you mentioned?
How does the minimization tool work I mentioned?
In rough terms.
So there are a lot of more, let's say, better minimization tools that people who know more about it have written, that are like work on single files and do some complicated things. Mine is a bit less smart, but it's pretty specialized on Rust. So what it does is it takes your Rust project, parses all the files, currently with Syn, but I'm rerouting it to 3-seater for reasons. and it then does some passes over the files. For example, one pass it does, tries to replace as many bodies as possible with just loop. Because bodies are quite complicated and contain lots of code, and if they're just loop, the function body, that's a lot simpler to compile, and yeah, that's kind of what we want. That's one big thing it does. It also tries to remove unused functions. So it tries to make as many functions private as possible, and then it tries to remove some of them that aren't used by looking at RustC's lints. And yeah, sometimes it just crashes. That's also one thing it does.
When it took you 2 hours to do a minimization, was that using your tool or was that manual?
Whether I used my tool for the 2-hour minimization, I didn't use it because it didn't exist. So yeah, that was like one of the reasons why I wrote the tool. I was like minimizing, and also a different issue that took me a similar amount of time. I was just thinking like, what I'm doing is so dumb. Like a tool could do this for me. While minimization is something that's quite satisfying, seeing the code shrink, it's also kind of repetitive, and I wouldn't necessarily call it boring, but it's something where you really get the feeling that like a tool could do this, so I tried to write it. I've also used Cargo Minimize to minimize some issues, and I think it did take me less time. So yeah, it's kind of proven in practice. But some other people have also just sent me screenshots of it crashing, so it doesn't always work. But I'm just slowly trying to fix it whenever I'm interested, which I'm not that often, but sometimes. Yeah.
You mentioned that the review bandwidth was not so great in some of the teams or some of these very big issue lists. So how does one get to become a reviewer on this? And is there like a formal process for getting people approved and pipeline?
So the question was, some of the teams don't have a bad review bandwidth. What the process is for getting becoming a reviewer. The current process is roughly like you start contributing, you start writing code, and hopefully someone will review it right now. And then you just get recognized, or someone recognizes you, like, hey, this person, like, hey, Niels has been doing lots of cool compiler contributions. And then you get promoted to the team, and on the team you can do reviews. That's of course also sort of has a bootstrap problem, because you can't contribute if no one can review. So yeah, the teams are working on trying to fix it, but yeah, it's a bit hard. But of course, it's also hard to just become a reviewer as a random person, because to review code, you have to know a lot about it. And if you don't know a lot about it, then sure, you could just approve something, but also it's not great. We do want to be, I think we'd rather be have some high quality code than but a bit less reviews. But yeah, it's something that people are trying to fix, but it's hard finding maintainers as always, like in most open source projects.
Can you tell a bit more about it, or is it too technical, and in which case maybe it's something to discuss later?
Well, I can talk more about Carbon's hashing strategy. So I don't understand the strategy in detail, I just ported it. But essentially, it's with hashing, you kind of have the trade-off, like, do you want to hash quickly, or do you want to have a good hashing quality? And the current hashing algorithm that the Rust compiler uses, called fxhash from Firefox originally, has terrible quality, but it's extremely fast. And for the integer keys, like Rust uses a lot of hash maps, and mostly with integer keys. And with the way it uses them, fxhash, despite its bad quality, it's just so fast, so it's the best one. And a lot of hashing algorithms have been tested. Carbon's hashing also has a bit higher quality. It's a more quality than fxhash, but it's also a bit slower. And in the case of the Rust compiler, it didn't check out. But I'm sure that for other use cases, like the ones Chandler envisioned, it would be quite good and better. But yeah, sometimes with performance, you just have to try it out. And yeah, as with like fxhash has been the Rust compiler for a very long time, and people keep trying new algorithms, and all of them die.
So thank you again.
Do you want to plug your laptop in, or do you have it somewhere else? So I'm gonna get out of here.
Thank you very much. So, no break this time. It will be short. Oh, could you give me the mic?
Sure.
And streaming. Hooray! We're back, I think. Yes. All right. So RustFest 2024. Woo! We teased it a little bit. Yay! So yeah, I did the introductions. Do you want to say something, or should I just go through? Oh, and this is an interactive session, so you can ask questions. So we are here now. So we have a plan, yes, and the name and the date and the location. Well, mostly. We have a domain, we have email, and we're not flagged on any spam lists. And we have an announcement here. And we have a CFP next week. Okay, so let's demo this. So the team, we have a website. Nice. It has a dark mode as well. Ooh. Very, very important. we have art as well. So you see we're with the times. It's, as you can count by the legs, AI. Has too many legs. But it's a lion-headed crab, so it's Züri. And yeah, let's just go through the thing. So this is the plan. 2 days of workshops, 2 days of talks in 2 tracks, and the Impel Days. Who has been to any RustFest with Impel Days? No Impel Days? Okay. Never, you have been before 2017? No. Okay. So let's go through the things. So the workshop days are for everybody that is employed and wants to tell their boss, hey, I want to do Rust for a day or 2. Then we have a list of people that want to give some workshops. These are very good teachers. The first one is Mike over here. He will do something fancy with embedded. You want to announce something more?
No, but I don't know, I guess I can also adapt to the public. One other thing that is interesting, I learned is people that come from Python, a high-level language that is scripted, but want to maybe improve the speed of their Python stuff, then I can present that too, I guess, since I've done that literally at work.
Yes. Stefan Baumgartner, that's not me, that's the other Stefan from Lind. He has updated his refactoring workshop, which was very well received at Eurorust. Then we have an async embedded workshop that is in the works from Martin Mosler at Züriche. You can meet him probably in February at the meetup. Then we have Rust Bridge. This is the intro beginner workshop. That one is actually free. The others probably won't be. And then we have the, if there is enough demand, an async actor model workshop by me. So how to do decouple business logic from data from runtime. That will be fun. And hosting daemons in systemd or containers. Also fun. And if you have, yes?
Just quick, are these each 6 hours long, or will there be 6 hours? How do we have 6 in parallel?
Very good question. So we'll have maybe 6, maybe more in parallel. And depending on the teachers, they will hold their workshop twice. So on Wednesday and Thursday. Or they will do just one of the days. But yeah, there will be multiple in parallel. We have already 2 rooms, or 3? 2 or 3 rooms for sure. And then we'll ask other big companies if they can host us as well. These workshops will be spread out a little bit because we probably cannot do them at the university. Yes. Any more questions? Moving on. Then talk days. We expect 400 to 450 people. We have room for, I think, up to 600 in theory. That would mean that 2 rooms were filled with 300 people. We'll probably not go for that. Because let's say one talk is a little more interesting than the others, then the room is already full, right? So we'll go a little lower. Maybe we go up to 500, but we'll see. One of the big challenges with a lot of people is actually food. Because if you have 500 hungry people and it takes you 30 seconds to serve each person, then it takes you 3 hours to hand out food, and we can't do that. Lunch will be included with that one for sure. We'll try to do it with the workshops as well, but yeah. Then we'll have a small sponsor section. So compared to Eurorust, which had like a separate foyer filled with all the sponsors and their cool gimmicks, it will be less, like way less. Just don't have the space, and it's mostly a community conference. So that one brings us to the posters and plushies. The plushie project, yes, we could use some help with that one, just to organize the production and the shipment and all that. And we'll have.
A stupid question.
Yes, ask.
What's the plushie project?
One moment, please. So, the plushie project, can you see? Yes, here. See these little plushies? So, I don't remember who came up with this idea, and then a good friend of mine had a company called One Aim, sadly got dissolved, helped us produce these for 2017, the first RustFest in Zurich, and 2018, the RustFest in Rome. And the idea is to make another one for the next RustFest. Oops. And we'll see how big they will be, but I actually like this size. I also know that, what's the UK one called?
UK
Rust Nation, thank you. The Rust Nation wants to do this size plushie, maybe like this, but it will be at least this size. So you can definitely hug it and sleep on it. And I heard the Netherlands are also thinking of making a bigger plushie. So, yeah.
Is it plushy war? Escalation?
Yes, there is maybe an escalation in plushie size, so we'll just go for something that you can attach to a belt or your backpack or something. Yes. Cool. And then there will be lots of toilets. Very nice. And since it's a technical university, the women won't have a queue. And this is the first idea of how to do it. So all the blue stuff is food, and all the white stuff is information or walking around. And as you can see, we have the idea of streaming the keynote from one room to the other. We'll have to check if that works technically, but that's at least the idea. If we can't have that, then I don't know. We'll find something else fun to do. Yeah. But yeah, you can see there's 7 to 8 talks. This first day, second day will be pretty much the same. And yeah, we're working on a cool infrastructure that you can always see if there's a delay in the other room. So we'll see. If you want a side project, then help us with stuff like that. Okay.
It's cool that you have time in between the talks, because I felt there was a big problem in Brussels and Eurorust.
Yeah.
There was no time to one from one room to the other.
Mm-hmm.
There was effectively like 5 tracks in parallel, which I felt was really annoying because they got overcrowded, all of them. There was the golfers and there were stations and there was all mixed together sometimes. And so generally I do not like multi-track conference because I'm always going to miss something. And it's a pain to move around them, and you always feel like, oh, is it better in the other room? And the overcrowded problem was really annoying, I felt, in Eurorust. So thank you for only having 2 tracks at least.
Yes. So the other big thing with 2 tracks is they're actually on top of each other. So if you want to change tracks, you can take the stairs and just go up or down. And the toilets are on the side, mid-stair. So that's pretty good.
One question.
Yes, question.
Will it be only on-site conference, or will there be streams, like live streams?
So it will be an on-site first conference, like we do with the meetup. So that means we will record everything and try to stream it. But streaming is tricky. Like, yeah, Wi-Fi is tricky. We'll try to get cable. Hardware is tricky. We'll try to get the not so fancy Intel ones or just AMD ones. The AMD ones are very stable for streaming, so I think we'll just find other hardware for streaming and recording. Yeah, if we can, we try to stream it as well, but we have to see. Also, I don't know how YouTube copes with 2 streams at the same time on the same account. We'll do some testing. So if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, the @Rust video or videos, then there is a chance that you will get some notification of like, test stream 1, test stream 2, and then just be happy and know that we forget to change the privacy setting. Cool. Oh yeah, for the 2 talks, we had the idea to have the first one technical, right, with lots of async, So one of the big topics now is async programming. So we'll have an eye out for async talks, and maybe also how the compiler handles async, because the last one was very interesting, and I'm pretty sure the implementation changed since then. But yeah, and the second one will be more business-oriented, beginner-friendly. So while the first track is more on the, I found this little detail and now it's 5% faster, and everybody was like, ooh. The second one will be more like, I made this service and it communicates with all of these things and it does that thing. Would be, of course, nice if both had stories, right? So how, why, maybe do it in a theater style, what's it, like 5 acts or 3 acts? Like with the problem, the betrayal, the solution. But yeah, we'll see. If we have only remote speakers, then they will be pre-recorded, probably. Yes?
Have you thought of labeling the talks by how difficult they are? Because that was, again, like the most recent one I was at was the one in Brussels, the one in Florence. But one of the things I would often show up at a talk, and then they're like, okay, now we're going to hear this thing that was a very introduction to something, and that's not always easy for me to guess from the titles and the abstracts. So I would love to have something like beginner, intermediate, advanced.
I think you convinced the team, yes. We'll try to add tags, yes.
Another thing I felt in one of the conferences was there was a bunch of talks where people showed up and they told me about their pet project that happened to be written in Rust, but it was not about Rust at all. It was about all sorts of other things around, and I don't always care about people's random tools that do random things. If it's written in Rust or anything else, it's not always interesting, I feel, in a Rust conference. Because I know Rust can be used for everything.
Almost, yeah.
So fine, then we discuss that, in my opinion.
So that's what this separation also enables us to do, right? So the question, is this interesting because it's built in Rust, or is it something interesting technically, right? So the first one would be a pet project that happens to be in Rust, probably not. The second track, probably yes. And one of my ideas is that people that maybe are not even programming get a recording from one of these talks shown as like, dear boss, they made, I don't know, an inventory management system with robots. Can we use Rust for our own? And then maybe yes. So, cool. Moving on, the Impl days. So I think we should explain that a little bit. So, okay, I keep talking. Everybody looks at me. So the Impl days.
Organized it. You were the organizer of the last.
Yeah, that's true. I organized the last one. So the idea is that we just have a room like this with tables, with power, with the Wi-Fi, and some water, and probably some toilets as well. Just the basics, and that we then say, have fun, go play. Right. And the good thing is this time we asked the couple work groups. I've got a response from what's formerly was the docs work group, and some of them said, yeah, we're interested. And hopefully they can commit to saying, okay, this new work group is around, and here is a list of things we are going to evaluate or work on. And that means for everybody that joins, they can just meet the work group. I remember the first time we did it in 2017, a lot of the compiler team met in the same room, and they had some issue that was stalling a little bit for, I think, a couple of weeks. And then at some point, they were all in the same room at one table, and they fixed it in an hour or two. So that's very nice, because they didn't have any delays anymore, right? They could just talk in real time. And that should be the same again, right? But now it's not just the compiler team, it's multiple work groups. And if you have a project like the Rust Analyzer, that one might be around, we'll see. But that is very interesting. So if you have a bug So I went to the Rust Analyzer people in Brussels and was like, hey, I noticed that sometimes Rust Analyzer crashes when I do my git rebase and pull rebase and whatnot. Then they're like, okay, yeah, we looked at it and yeah, we found the problem. We didn't fix it yet, but we know. So if there's something that comes out of that, maybe there will be something like that. It's open to any work group. And if you have a private project that you want to list it, then I think maybe we can do that as well. Yes. And maybe you find new friends. Connect. All right. Then tickets. Yes. So we meant to start selling tickets now, but life is life. We'll do them in waves. So the first wave will be in January. And it will contain, I don't know, maybe a third of all tickets. And then we'll do another wave end of February, end of March, depending on how fast they sell out. And we have 3 tiers. And thanks to Claudia, who came up with the nice name. So we have the regular tickets. These are tickets that you'll get a receipt for, that you can give to your company and say like, hey, this is expenses. They will be a bit pricey for a Rust conference, but they allow us to do community tickets and student tickets. And they are very cheap, like to the point where I think they don't even pay for the food. But yeah, that's fine. If we have a good enough mix of all of that, then the conference is very open and accessible, and community, you have to decide for yourself, right? If you're unemployed, of course, yes. If you have a big crate that is used a lot and your company decides, no, we don't fund your ticket, of course. And student is pretty clear, right? You have to study somehow. Yeah. Ticket pricing, should we guess? So we're currently at 450 to 500 for the regular price, which compared to Cisco and Microsoft is cheap.
And that does not include the workshops, I suppose?
Yes, that's correct. That's just the talks and the Impl days. The workshops are separate. We also don't have the same capacity, right? Because we like the workshops to be maybe 10 to 20 people in size and not more. And if we have 6 or 10 speakers, then we can have 160 to 200 people at most, and the conference will host 400. So, yeah. We also know that not everyone cares for the workshops, so that's fine as well. Yeah, more questions. Yes.
Comments.
No.
So in the one in Florence, when I showed up, I didn't go to the workshops, but I showed up at the first conference day. But one thing that was strange for me was that the entire program was always announced as, oh, you're now here on the second day. I'm a bit like, what did I miss? But it turns out the workshops were kind of seen as a first day. So many talked about it in that way, and the whole thing was, I felt like I'd missed out. So now for the Rust Nation, I bought the workshops as well, because I don't want to be in this silly situation again. This as a feedback, it was kind of, it felt odd to me, because I traveled all the way to Florence, and I was like, okay, I missed out on this day.
Was the Florence one the Rust Lab?
Yes, that was the Rust.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they're not associated with RustFest at all. Different branch. I meant to do a fancy graph, but yeah. So Rust Lab is a different concept. This is a company that organizes conferences for different languages. And yeah, different concept.
That
Yeah.
if you think of the Impl days, of course everybody, but you not can tell, because there are so few people who can come to the workshop days.
So currently the labeling is workshop day 1, 2, talk day 1, 2, Impl day 1, 2.
Cool. Yeah.
So we could also count to 6, but
But this has some strange side effects, I felt.
Yeah, I mean we can count to 2, so we're great for IT, right? Cool. Workshops, yeah, did I say that already? Can't remember. So since it's 2 days, you can book 2 workshops, basically. You can book one, let's say the first one or the second one independently. Yeah, and again, ask for your company to pay for them, because they will be again in the 400 to 500-ish range. and we'll try to get food with that one as well. Also, hour-wise, we are currently aiming at 6-ish with a break. You will need to bring a laptop, definitely, and maybe some other requirements depending on the workshop, right? So,
yeah, for my thing, for example, I will send out then emails to everyone what I would expect to be on the machine already, because otherwise the first hour is spent with some people setting up, I don't know, Clippy or whatever, which they should use already, but you know, these requirements, and then it should be fairly efficient to do those things. And the idea is to have all workshop holders do their workshop twice, so on day 1 and on day 2. This way it's more realistic for really motivated people to do what they want and not miss out. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. If there is hardware requirement, I think we'll just increase the price and then give it that way, probably. We'll see. Embedded is always interesting. Community features. So this is for the whole conference, or maybe starting at the talk day, I'm not sure yet. But the idea we had in, was it Rome? I don't remember. So at some point we had the idea to have the lanyards colored, right? Because usually you just buy blacks or whites and no one cares. And then we learned that you can buy any color. So now we have the system that if you have a black one, you're okay with being photographed off stage. On stage, you will get photographed because you're on stage. But if you get a red one, then people can look through their photos and then keep them for themselves, but not publish them, right? And should ask for pictures anyways. I know the law is different, but the law is also from 1800. That is still on the assumption that if I take a picture of a group like this, that they cannot discern one people from the next. So this is no longer true. My phone has over 50 megapixels, so yeah, and it's not a good phone. That's okay. Cool. The rule of 6 will tell that again, just so you know. This is the common table size for restaurants. So if you go for lunch and find new friends, it will usually start like this. Do you want to go for lunch? Yes, and then you all join, and now we're a group of 50 people. No restaurant can handle that. So if you're 6 people, just walk away. And then maybe the next 6 people still can join the same restaurant, but usually after 30 people, a restaurant is just full. So, all right, CFP process. The first round it should be blind. That means you can send in your proposals, and then just never mention your name. Like if you mention your name in the abstract or the text, then it will just get discarded. Sorry. So that way we see not who it is. Of course, there's exceptions. Like for instance, if someone writes, "I'm the author of ZBus and I want to talk about the latest feature," then I know it's Seishan from Berlin. So, so that one is a little tricky. But usually people get around this by saying, "Yeah, I work a lot on this library," instead of saying I'm the main maintainer of it and stuff like that. So yeah, then the second rounds will be balancing and find duplicates. And duplicates means there's people that are great at writing proposals. And for the last 3 or 4 RustFest, in the top 10, I had at least seen one person that had 3 talks in the top 10, because you read the proposal and were like, yes, perfect. So we'll try to avoid having one person giving more than 1 talk. Therefore, it's not just the top 10 talks that make it in, but there will be some filtration. And then sometimes when you ask a speaker, are you still available? They're not. And then there will be some movement. And we'll try to have every slot filled and then maybe 1 or 2 backups per day. So that will, if someone gets ill, it happens. Like in Rome, we had 3 speakers falling ill at the talk day. It was bad, but it is what it is. Cool. What to do? So you can all, also the stream, prepare CFP talks and meetup, so ideas, and then once we have the CFP, we'll just open it. You can join us in February and March again, because these meetups are on the way. You can join the Matrix group, spread the words and bring friends. That also means that you can bring your colleague that maybe is interested but didn't have the time to join. You can tell us about jobs, and I have to tell you after about one more. Read the website, ask questions. Maybe we'll open the source for the website later on, so that we can accept pull requests for typos or badly worded sections. We also have a code of conduct. Currently the code of conduct still has a section about an awareness team. We're currently a bit short on team, so maybe we have to find another solution, unless we find lots of volunteers, which brings us to the next one. How can you help? We could use some more volunteers for the entrance at the talk day, and of course buy the ticket early, because then we know there's interest. If, for instance, we only sell 20 tickets in the first 3 months, then we know it will be a small conference. If we sell out 150 tickets in the next weeks, then it will be a big conference. So, yeah, that just... if we don't manage to sell out, it's okay, it will just get smaller. Maybe we'll have less extra features, but the conference will happen. And with that, we're back to you can ask questions. Ooh, everybody.
The date.
The date. Yes. The date and location, very good. So the date, June 19th, whoops, to the 24th. That one is now fixed. The first 2 days, so the 19th and the 20th will be the workshops. Then 21st and 22nd, that will be Friday, and Saturday will be talks. We chose that because it's half and half, right? If you don't get time off, you can at least join one of the days. If you get time off, you get 1 day off. So it's a compromise. We used to have the talks on Saturday, Sunday, but yeah, the consensus is now that we are corporate enough that we can go into the week. Location. Do we have pictures already? No, we don't have pictures. So the talks will be at ETH Zentrum. And then we have another thing. The train map does not apply to you that much because you're already here. But we have this idea that we can do, here we go, pre and post events. So if you have a friend that, for instance, lives, let's say here in Hamburg, then we could try to arrange with the Hamburg meetup that they do a meetup on the Tuesday before the workshops. So people could go to Hamburg, let's say from Denmark or Sweden or Norway. And if the Norway train, you take it down, Stockholm, Hamburg, that's 1 day. Then you can go to the meetup and then join the night train, which will directly drive down here to Zürich. For other cities, it's a little different. From Paris, we have a 4-hour train, so very high speed. But if you're from London and you go to the Paris meetup on the way back or two, could be interesting. The same down here. If you're from the south of Spain or Spain in general, maybe travel to Paris and then hop over. Italy is also pretty close. And the eastern part, there is a night train, this blue line from Vienna through Austria into Zurich that arrives at 8 in the morning here. So also very nice. Also, I think I have a map. Down here there is a map. See the network of ÖBB. And this is all the sleeper trains. So if you're anywhere near any of these lines, you can travel to that city, join an evening event, and then continue with the night train and wake up rested. And ÖBB gives you a breakfast think it's
And if you book them now, well,
Yeah.
I don't think you can do it literally now, but
soon.
a lot of time ahead, they will be super cheap on top.
Yes.
There's no way that you can fly cheaper.
So sometimes like 25 euros from Vienna to Zurich with a breakfast. So that's very cheap. All right. Did we look at all the website things? Location, policies, team, yes. Oh yeah, here's the old logo. Sometimes we use that one. And here's the sign up for the newsletter. We'll announce the tickets there once we have set up the newsletter. And here's the matrix link. Yes, and for sponsors, we're working on that as well. It's currently empty. And we have a Datenschutzerklärung, so don't sue us. And we have an imprint, so also don't sue us. Cool. I think that's it. Yeah? Did we forget anything?
I don't think so.
Cool. Then, thank you very much for your attention. And so you're the hosts.
Still some things outside,
Mhm.
chip processing, things like that. And
Yeah.
I don't know what the plan is. I think we have
So-
still at least an hour if we want to
Yeah.
stay and socialize. And
Yeah.
To leave earlier, just tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe stand up and wave so people see. So we have 7:30.
Grab one of us
Yes.
and we'll escort you down to
Hmm?
I
All right.
apologize for that.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, stream. And see you some other time.